Alright guys, this time we'll see how we can create one to-do application in Angular with the following features. We'll be able to cross over the selected to-dos. Also, we'll be able to delete such and to add a new to-do. So they appear like this. So let's see how we can create such application. Alright, if we go to app component, we see that we have one div with class of container. We show the title of the application, and also we see that we have two components here, app to dos and app to do form. So the structure of the project is very clear with two additional components and one service, and the service is placed inside of the shared directory. This also can be a service directory. So if we go to the service, let's take a look at the code. Actually, first, each to-do has the following interface. This interface also can be exported to a new file. And we have ID, title, and complete, three properties from each to-do. The ID is number, title is string, and complete is Boolean. And then we are using the HTTP client, which is a private member here because we are instantiating it also, and we don't want to be used anywhere else. And we use this HTTP to browse through this resource, just to turn the wrapping on. So we are going to JSON placeholder typicode.com, and we are grabbing a certain amount of to-dos. Here we're using one parameter limit. So whenever we are using the service, this limit will be provided whenever we are using this getToDos method. Let's see from where we are getting this parameter. If we go to the to-dos and to-do component TypeScript and to this function, which is getToDos, and we're using here this limit, and this limit is actually an input parameter. In Angular, from the app component, we can provide such input parameters, which can bind directly from the template, or they can bind to event or any other piece of data. Here we're using one-way binding, and we actually say, okay, load up this app to dos component and set parameter limit equals to 3. And when we are inside of the to-dos component, actually we are grabbing this parameter because app to dos is a child component of app component. So when we have the parameter limit here, we're passing it to our service, and the service actually fetches the to-dos based on this parameter. Okay, let's explore further the class to-do service. So we have our constructor, we are instantiating our HTTP client here. Also, we are creating an array based on this interface here to do. And then we're using one observable and one behavior subject. Why we're using those here? Well, the observable is to be able to have read-only property of the behavior subject, so we cannot interfere from within the components with our behavior subject and to mess with the data it's producing. Behavior subject is not a simple subject because we would like also to initialize it with data. So both of them are imported from RxJS. We also use certain operators from RxJS. Actually, while we're fetching the to-dos within their provided limit, we are saving them in our local to-dos member variable, and also we are distributing them via the subject .next property. So we're using this behavior subject. All the subscribed components to this behavior subject via the observable to-dos will be able to grab the data, and we return true because this means that this function successfully has fetched the data from this URL address. In case of error, we just alert the error message and return false. If we change, for example, one character here, save and recompile the file, and again go to our browser, and we see automatically that we have this error here and nothing is loaded up. So the error connections also work. Now let's take a look at the to-dos component. We're using the service, and it's important that first we're using the fetch data, just the function we discussed, and we are subscribing automatically here to any observed variables from this fetch data. And if we cannot get anything, we go directly to this template error fetch. So let's see what is fetch data. If we go to the TypeScript file, we see that fetch data is running our service getToDos function. After we have the data, we see that we are subscribing to the to-dos and we are propagating an ordered list with them. Let's see from where this to-dos observable comes. We go to the TypeScript part and we see that first it's observable of type of array of to-dos and it's attached to the service to-dos. If we go to the service to-dos, we see that they are actually observing the subject. So whenever something changes, here we are subscribing for data, those observables will be filled with data. And that's how we're subscribing to those and we are filling the data afterwards within the ng-for cycle. A few more moments to discuss. Actually, again, we use binding and we add a class of done whenever the state of certain to-do is complete. And since we are fetching the to-dos and we already have from the service a state of complete, here in the component, based on this complete state, automatically, if the to-do is complete, we will be having the to-do crossed out. Then we have one input box of type checkbox, and it's based again on the complete state. This means that whenever we click on the check state, to do complete will be true and vice versa. We still have one binding, which is whenever we are clicking on the checkbox to run this function on change and to pass todo.id. So the current to do we are clicking on. Let's take a look at this on change function. We're actually running again a certain method and it's on toggle and we're passing the ID. If we go to the service, let's find this on toggle method. From the local list of the to-dos, we're finding the index of the to-do, which has the ID of the past ID, and then we change its status from complete to incomplete and vice versa. Then we have one button with a class of remove, and we are again starting one function. Let's take a look at a remove to-do function. We are filtering the local to-dos, and we are returning basically a new list, just excluding the current past to-do ID. One more thing we are doing here on the remove to-do, just because a new list will be rendered on the screen, we're passing the new to-dos via the subject. So we're using this subject.next, this to-dos. That's for the to-dos component. Now the last component is the to-do form component. Let's open its HTML file. We see that we have one input here and one button. Whenever we click on the button, we start the function add to do. The same is true whenever we click on the enter, because we have binding to the enter key. So let's take a look at the add to do function. So the add to do function, we're constructing one new object out of the to do interface. Okay, we have imported the interface from our service. This object will have ID, title, and complete. And we are using again a method add to do of the service to add the newly constructed member. Let's take a look at add to do. We are grabbing all the to-dos that we have saved in our system so far, and we are adding this new member to them. When everything is ready, the result is propagated via the behavior subject. And one more interesting thing is this binding, which is double binding or two-way binding. So we have binding from the model to the template and from the template to the model, which means that whenever we are changing this input inside of the template, it will reflect the model. And for this, inside of our TypeScript, we have created a new private variable title, and that's how the binding works automatically. And one more thing not to forget in such cases, to go to app component, app module, and here you need to import forms module for the binding to work. Also, after it's imported, you need to list it inside of the imports declarations. So that's basically how a simple to-do list can be achieved in Angular. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and if you like the information, you can subscribe to the channel.